Hi, Cenk. We're here at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. We like to call it the safe space. There's this great event that's going on amidst the chaos outside with the protests, civil disobedience, and, of course, the Trump supporters all for the inauguration. We are so lucky, privileged to have Representative Barbara Lee from California, one of our most notable progressive voices in Congress. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm very happy to be with you, and thank you all for being the heart and soul of the resistance movement.
Thank you. So, Representative, Cenk says, ooh, I can hear him in my ear. Oh. That's the live feed right there. Congresswoman, this is a unique moment in history. You've had several Democrats say that they are not going to be here for the inauguration. Were you at the inauguration today?
No, last week, actually early last week, I decided that I was not going to attend the inauguration because in many ways the inauguration is a celebratory event. I decided I was not going to attend, even though I respect the peaceful transfer of power. And of course, we know that now Donald Trump is the president, and I respect the office of the presidency. But I cannot celebrate this agenda that has been put forth not only during the campaign, but after the election, that continues to be a campaign really on divisiveness and bigotry. And when you look at many of the proposals that President Trump intends to govern by, such as the Dreamer proposal, possibly, deporting people young people. That's scary to me. Also, some of the individuals that he's put forward as cabinet members. When you look at Senator Jeff Sessions, my gosh, as the nation's highest law enforcement officer, one who has been against civil and human rights for all, to me that's unacceptable. A president should have an agenda that's going to be for all Americans, that's going to protect the most vulnerable. I don't see this president moving forward in his administration leading on these issues, so I couldn't celebrate today.
There is quite a bit of organizing outside right now. People who are expressing their freedom of speech, their right to protest, their right to express how they feel about now President Trump. A lot of the questions I'm hearing from the other side, the more reasonable folks I've been speaking to at this inauguration are, well, what do they want to happen? You know, when you protest, he's not going to step down from office. What's the outcome you want? And I guess the question I ask you as a leader of progressives is, what happens tomorrow? What happens after these protests end? Where do progressives go from here?
Well, certainly, first of all, I believe in the right to free speech. Central to our democracy is the right to dissent and to offer different points of views. And the protests are very important in terms of maintaining a democracy, to let any administration know there are other points of views that need to be heard. What we do tomorrow, the first thing is try to make sure that the Affordable Care Act is not repealed. Up to 30 million people can lose their health care. We've got to make sure that does not happen. We've got to fight to make sure that Medicare is not privatized, that Social Security is not privatized. I'm on the Appropriations Committee and the Budget Committee, and my gosh, what we're hearing about cuts to the safety net and to education, this is outrageous. So many people are going to get hurt. And so protesters, people who march today, need to be on that telephone, on social media, calling their members of Congress, telling them, one, do not vote for Senator Jeff Sessions to become the next Attorney General. You know, voice your opinions. The power of people is really important right now. And so protesting, but doing the work of lobbying and of engaging with your senators and members of the House are extremely important. And then also plan for 2 years. We have to take back the House and the Senate. Start getting people registered to vote, organize, mobilize, work for candidates locally and statewide and at the congressional level so that we can have people to get elected. Democrats, I'm a Democrat, a progressive Democrat. Look for progressive Democrats to run for office, so do the work.
Do you think that congressmen actually listen, congressmen and women listen to the voters? I mean, there's some people think that, oh, you can call your office, you can send all the signatures you want, but they're not listening, they're just listening to the lobbyists. You're a congresswoman, obviously you're a progressive congresswoman, but do you feel like your colleagues actually listen to what happens in their districts?
Oh, yes, they listen. I just don't think some districts speak loud enough. And a recent example, which Michael Moore so brilliantly laid out this morning, is when they were about to end the Office of Congressional Ethics. Within 2 hours, the phone lines were jammed, emails were coming in. They completely reversed that. And that was not, those weren't lobbyists doing that. These were people engaged with their members of Congress. So absolutely yes. Oftentimes people sit back and don't think they have that kind of power. When in a democracy, that's the bottom line. That's what this country is based upon, the power of the people. So people need to get engaged and guarantee things will change.
Democrats don't have a lot of power right now, legislatively. You know, they don't have the majority of legislatures, the governorships, Senate, obviously, Congress, and unfortunately now the Supreme Court. And they need to recruit leaders. And you talked about that, getting people, progressives, elected. One of the things that I hear out there that is a barrier of entry for running for office is money. How, you want a lot of people to run for office, but it costs a lot of money. You got to fundraise. You're progressive. How are we going to, as progressives, recruit candidates when the income inequality is so stark right now, and people can barely survive, let alone raise millions of dollars to run for Congress or other offices?
Getting money out of politics is extremely important, and we've got to at some point overturn Citizens United, because this silent money, this corporate money, the influence of money is outrageous in national politics and local politics. But I think when we have seen candidates who have run and won, I mean, look at Barack Obama. He ran his fundraising operation based on low donors, and he was elected to the presidency. Look at Bernie Sanders and how he ran his campaign. And so I know for a fact, and for me, it's really hard to raise money as a progressive, as an African American, and as a woman. Can you imagine how difficult it is? But you get 100,000 people supporting you at $5, $10 a month. You can win. You can do this. We just have to fight on two fronts. One, try to overturn Citizens United and try to support efforts. And there are bills pending for public financing of campaigns. But secondly, we have to focus on how to broaden our base of low donors and fundraise with low donors, because it does cost money. I mean, we have to pay for, all kinds of campaign apparatus. But, just to run a campaign, I mean, you have to pay rent, you have to pay for phones, you have to pay for ads. You do have money that you have to spend. So you got to raise money to spend money. But you can raise it if you have more people donating smaller amounts of money, and that way we can break up this system of big money influence in politics.
Sounds like a revolutionary idea for the Democratic Party. Hey, we just raised $1 million from online contributions from our network of people to hire reporters, so clearly the model is shifting. My last question is about the freedom of press, because most journalists have to be careful about their advocacy, because they can't, they're not supposed to be pushing one side or the other or get involved politically. But freedom of press is under attack right now, with Donald Trump not allocating press passes. He's, questioning whether or not he's even going to have press conferences regularly. As a congresswoman, how are you going to be fighting back against the fight against freedom of press right now?
This is part of the Republican overall agenda to shut down First Amendment rights. I mean, it's not only freedom of press, which is central to this democracy and to informing people and to keeping people engaged with their public officials and accountability, which is really important. But you're looking at Republicans who are insisting that pictures, for instance, be taken down in the Capitol of the reality painted by a young African-American boy who's an artist, and that was shut down. You're talking about fining members of Congress who engage in protests on the House floor, such as we did around gun violence. And so you're talking about really the fundamentals of democracy being challenged and being shut down by Republicans, not only Donald Trump, but you look at the House of Representatives and what is taking place there. So now more than ever, people need to hit the streets and need to voice their opinions about a free press, about shutting down artists and what their artistic reality and genius. That's the nature of art in our country and the world. So there are many things going on now that scare me to death, but it's going to be people, young people especially, who have these values, who know that they want a free country, a country where they can voice their opinions, and a country that acknowledges that they have a future in a democracy. It's going to be young people who are going to stop this. And so I really appreciate being able to be with you today.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Congresswoman Barbara Lee from California, one of the strongest progressive voices. Remember the Iraq vote. Remember that. Google her if you don't know her. We're here live at the National Press Club for a wonderful event in the safe space at the inauguration. We'll be coming back a little bit later. Thanks, guys. I'm going to shoot it back to you at the Young Turks. I'm Nomiki Konst.